What's going on, you guys? This is New York Adventurer 1994 here. It is Saturday, October 29th, 2022. And I promised you the video of me doing a 10th anniversary video regarding Hurricane Sandy. And I'm going to talk about what happened 10 years ago when we had Hurricane Sandy paralyze the entire Northeast, especially New York and New Jersey and Long Island. So yeah, we were warned about this for like over a week, ever since this thing formed in the Atlantic. Like, by Wednesday they were showing that Hurricane Sandy is expected to make landfall on the Jersey Shore by that following Monday. Ever since that Wednesday they were showing it. And they were showing why it has to make landfall over there. Because of this huge blocking high pressure, like over by Greenland or Canada, that's forcing the storm to shift westward. So yeah, we were pretty much doomed. The whole Northeast was doomed by this thing. Yeah, there was no turning back after what they were showing. Yeah, there was like this huge roadblock in the storm's path from preventing it to moving out to sea, and it had to make landfall in New Jersey. And 3 days before the storm was coming, that Friday night I had a middle school dance, and this was actually my first ever middle school dance I went to. It was known as the fall dance. You know, back in middle school they have the fall dance, the winter dance, and the spring dance. And I went to the fall one back in 2012, which was 3 days before Hurricane Sandy made landfall. Yeah, so I went to the fall dance at my middle school like 3 days before the storm hit. And that last Monday before the storm, the Monday before the storm hit, like a week in advance, that was also the last time I went horseback riding up in Syosset. I used to go like every Monday ever since 2010, like in the springtime and in the fall time. I went for 2.5 years. Yeah, I stopped going horseback riding before Sandy hit. So now, during preparation week, we were doing our final preparations, like we were double checking everything. I mean, we were ready like very early, but we were like making sure we had everything ready. Like we were doing these final checks. And we also had suitcases in our living room in case we had to evacuate, in case it gets really bad. But we didn't really evacuate. Yeah, we were still here because the waters weren't really gonna reach us. But either way, it was still pretty bad. And that Sunday we went to church. We went to a mass before the storm hit. Like that Sunday before it all started getting bad. Yeah, the clouds were starting to build up on Sunday. Yeah, it was all starting. It was just getting started. That was like the last day of preparation weekend before the storm hit. Like when we went to mass that Sunday, the clouds were already there. Like the early signs of Hurricane Sandy. And then they were showing it making landfall as a post-tropical storm, but with hurricane force winds embedded in the system. And then, yeah, it still had those 80 to 90 mile per hour winds, and it was a post-tropical with hurricane force winds in it. But since it was expected to not make landfall as a hurricane, we had high wind warnings instead of hurricane warnings because it was forecasted to make landfall not as a regular hurricane. So we would not get the regular hurricane warnings we normally get during a hurricane. It was like a post-tropical superstorm, which was pretty strong. And then Sunday was the last day of quiet before the storm hit, and then the next morning on that Monday, school was closed and the wind started picking up. Yeah, I didn't get flooded. Mostly people near the ocean got flooded. But for me, I was like well inland. So the waters did not reach me whatsoever. It was mostly a high wind event for my area when Sandy came. But I was still bracing for impact no matter which way it goes. But during the whole event, it was like a high wind event for me. We still had power till like 6 o'clock at night or 5 o'clock at night. Like after we had dinner, we just lost power just like that. And then I started doing my homework in the dark that night. Yeah, I was doing my homework in the dark when we had no power from Sandy. I mean, we still had power in the daytime, but when the sun was going down, we lost power from the winds. They were like starting to crank up to like 80 to 90 miles per hour in this area. Like, we still had power in the daytime because it was just the beginning of all this. And then, by 5 o'clock at night, the winds were still going and we lost power due to how strong the winds were. And a lot of trees started falling everywhere. And I was in bed. I didn't like go to sleep till like 2 in the morning because of this. And I could hear the winds outside screaming. Like I could hear them behind the window like screaming. Like behind the glass. It was crazy. I was in the dark, awake till 2 a.m. and I heard the wind screaming outside. Like these 90-mile-per-hour wind gusts, and it was like making landfall on the Jersey Shore near Atlantic City. Yeah, Hurricane Sandy devastated a lot of people. A lot of people got killed by the storm. A lot of businesses and homes were flooded. The ocean came in and started wiping out all these homes that lived in the coastal area. Yeah, it was really bad, guys. I remember watching News 12 the other day on Wednesday, and they were showing these flashbacks of what Hurricane Sandy did. Yeah, they caused a lot of destruction. And this hurricane also started fires too. It was that bad. Hurricane Sandy was really bad for Long Island. This shows you that Long Island is not really prepared for major hurricanes like this. Yeah, because people don't really concern about that stuff. They live in this fantasy thinking that they're safe from this thing. Well, guess what? They are not. Yeah, I've seen what hurricanes do to this place. It's really ugly. It's not good at all. I didn't think I was going to have a house to live in anymore. I didn't think I was going to be here anymore after the storm. I was worried about it being this bad. Listen, I was scared I wasn't going to have this house anymore. But don't worry, I did have an evacuation plan. But I don't want to talk about it right now. I don't really want to go into it because I still have a lot to talk about with you guys. It's a good thing I had an evacuation plan just in case if it gets more uglier. It was really bad. New York City, Long Island, and New Jersey all got hit pretty bad. A lot of homes were wiped out, a lot of people got killed. There was a lot of flooding coming from the ocean. The ocean just came in and started wiping out all these homes and businesses that lived along the water. And the pier in New Jersey got destroyed too, where they had that pier fair, that pier amusement park, and it was completely destroyed. And the New York Aquarium was completely flooded. And there was also a Toys R Us in Brooklyn that also got flooded too from the hurricane, that they had to put all the stuff in a tent for like a few months. And I'm talking about that old Toys R Us store that used to be right near the Verrazano Bridge. Yeah, that Toys R Us was hit pretty hard that they had to put all the toys in a tent for a few months. This was 5 years before they closed their doors for good. Yeah. The winds were crazy, the rain was crazy, the flooding was crazy. It was wild. It probably made landfall as a Cat 1 or a Cat 2 post-tropical hurricane. I think it was mostly a Cat 2 because of how strong the winds were really. Because of how strong the winds were really are. Yeah, I really think it was a Cat 2. There's like a lot of argument out there between it being a Cat 1 or a Cat 2. I don't know. But its peak intensity, it was a Cat 3 major hurricane at some point. And then all along the week I had no power for like 10 days. There were a lot of gas stations that had like massive lines every night because they were trying to get fuel for their generator and stuff. A lot of businesses were closed, a lot of schools were closed, a lot of people became homeless and stuff. A lot of people lost their homes from the hurricane. Yeah, it wasn't so much the wind that was the issue, it was mostly the flooding that was the issue. Where the ocean came in and wiped out all these homes. It was that scary. My dad was one of those people that was like out all night trying to get more fuel for the generator. He was like out all night on that long line at a gas station. Yeah, he was like gone all night on those gas station lines like one night because he was trying to get more fuel for the generator. And my parents spent their anniversary trapped inside the house in the dark. Yeah, October 30th is my parents' anniversary. So my parents' anniversary was the day after Sandy hit. And they didn't go anywhere because they didn't want to leave me and my brothers alone in the dark with my grandmother because of how bad it was. And we didn't really know much back then as we do now. And then Halloween comes and I was Frankenstein, and instead of trick-or-treating at night, we actually trick-or-treated in the daytime because we wanted to spend time instead of waste time in the dark. We actually trick-or-treated in the daytime, and there were a lot of houses that were open for trick-or-treating because they had no power either, and they were waiting for trick-or-treaters and gave candy to us. Yeah, so I was Frankenstein that year, and we trick-or-treated with my friend Nick, and we went through the neighborhood like during the daytime trick-or-treating while we had no power. Yeah, this was hurricane trick-or-treating, where you go through a neighborhood that's powerless after a hurricane and you trick-or-treat. Yeah, all that week I was doing my homework in the dark, too. While I was out of school for a whole week. I'm gonna go to another